Maybe you think, if only I had a diagnosis, my problems would be solved. Someone could tell me what's wrong with me and I can fix it. Or maybe you notice that you can be pretty attached to your diagnosis, using it to explain a lot about you, but it doesn't seem to make you feel any better over time. Unfortunately, those are ineffective ways of looking at and utilizing all these mental health labels we have flying around. Before I get more deeply into that, I'm Ashley Mason, a licensed mental health counselor of 14 years. I want to break down why focusing on labels can often prevent us from seeing what really drives our suffering. Let's talk about labels and why they might be holding us back on our journey to healing. Look, I get why the Psychodynamic Diagnostic Manual and the DSM exist. We like structure and categories and a shared language. If you're anything like me, maybe you've searched for labels to understand yourself better, or wondered if a diagnosis would bring clarity to struggles you faced, or taken one of many personality tests and all that. And there's definitely value in that. I've received a few labels myself: depression, anxiety, adjustment disorder, dysthymia. My therapists were careful. They wanted to say as little as possible in order for my insurance to cover the treatment, and they wanted to make sure I was okay with each label. I've come to realize they were using a light touch, partially because of how sensitive I was, and partially because they didn't think it was necessary to get too stuck on the label. They wanted to make sure we could continue to look beyond it. The main problem I see with it is that labels give you a false sense of certainty and clarity. They make you feel as if you know yourself and maybe that you know all you need to know now. But it's just not true. There's an issue with how we use diagnoses today. Insurance companies often require a label to approve treatment, and then they favor methods that promise fast symptom reduction. And while approaches like DBT, EMDR, and CBT can be helpful, focusing only on symptom reduction doesn't get to the root of the issue that led us here in the first place. And real healing isn't a quick fix. It's a process that goes beyond managing symptoms to transform how we relate to ourselves and other people. My therapist knew how self-critical I could be, and they didn't want me to be clinging to labels in a way that might limit my growth or disparaging myself because of some label. They believed, and I do too, that healing journeys are more similar than different, whether you're labeled with depression, anxiety, ADHD, or something else. Each of us may come to therapy with different labels, but our journeys often share a lot of common ground. The labels can help us identify certain patterns or tendencies that we see on the surface, but they don't define us or actually explain much about who we are and why we are the way we are at all. I find them very lacking in helping me understand anyone more deeply. What's truly transformative is looking beyond the symptoms and labels to see the experiences, fears, and hopes that lie underneath. For example, I see this with ADHD a lot. Many people find the ADHD diagnosis empowering because it validates their struggles and points them to tools and strategies. But often, the challenges that look like ADHD stem from other life experiences. Much like most other people these days, I thought I had ADHD myself for a while in my 20s. I was in grad school, my focus was all over the place. And it made me feel like I wasn't as smart as other people because I couldn't focus, and then of course I couldn't retain what I was reading, things like that. This was before I started normal talk therapy with aforementioned therapists, by the way. So I went to a psychiatrist, got the diagnosis, and he started me on medication. And yes, life seemed easier for a while, but I really suffered until I started therapy, which was psychoanalytic therapy for me. As I dug deeper, I realized my symptoms were rooted in trauma. Being so hypervigilant made it nearly impossible for me to focus if anyone else was around. for example. And partially what would happen is that while trying to study or focus, my mind would run around asking me anxious questions about what's going to happen if you don't remember this? What are you going to do? And like run down the road of that, which of course did not help. I thought it was dumb because I would be listening to someone and miss half of what they said, like the detail of what they said. Well, guess what? I'm actually totally picking up on what they're saying. I'm just listening at a different level. I'm listening for what's underneath what they're saying. The emotions, the tones, the stuff that's unsaid. Again, this is probably about me trying to stay safe, but it makes me good at reading people. If I had stuck with that label of ADHD, I might never have uncovered those underlying issues. Healing meant facing my past, understanding and working through my hypervigilance and deep insecurities. This isn't unique to ADHD, it's the core of most healing journeys. When we attach too strongly to a label, we risk seeing ourselves as just that diagnosis. But healing journeys, in my experience, often require going beyond labels. I've had clients who blamed their ADHD for why they struggled to get out of the door in the morning. But underneath, the real issue was some stuff we needed to look at, like an unresolved need for control in response to someone telling her when and where to be, and having a reaction to that. And insecurities about appearance. Well, underneath, she had a fixed idea of how she needed to look before she walked out the door, which both of those things were to do with her family and how she grew up and what she was taught. I've had others who thought ADHD explained their relationship struggles, only to realize they were stuck in unhealthy dynamics that needed attention. The truth is, whether someone identifies with ADHD, depression, or another label, the path to healing often looks similar. It involves exploring your past, covering deep-rooted insecurities, feeling safe enough to eliminate your defenses that protect you but also block you, and learning how to relate to yourself with compassion. We all have our unique struggles, but we also share the need to heal, to feel secure, and to understand ourselves on a deeper level. This process should not be limited by a label, a false sense of certainty about who you are. So while labels like ADHD or depression can help us find direction, we need to be able to get past that to explore parts of ourselves that aren't captured by a single word. I invite you to ask yourself, what could you discover about your strengths and potential if you saw yourself beyond a label? Because sometimes healing isn't about fixing what's wrong with us. And I believe this very strongly. It's about understanding who we truly are and embracing the parts of ourselves that make us whole. Thank you for watching, and you can listen to more from me here, maybe somewhere.